G'day legends, I hope that you are having a fantastic week and you're having a great weekend. And last week I had off. I went on a holiday. I actually went to Fiji with my partner and we had a great time, and I'm actually feeling a lot better about making these videos. Now, a lot of people have been waiting on results of the MRI I had on my head. I was meant to have that appointment last Tuesday, but my neurosurgeon rang me. Well, actually her admin rang me, and she was still in surgery, like an emergency surgery. She was performing the bloody surgery, and that I had to move my appointment. Neurosurgeons out there saving people's lives, and me being like, oh, anyway, no, she's fantastic, but I'll get those results this week and I'll update you as soon as I know that. So today we're going to talk about a fair bit. We're going to look at the Il-76 aircraft that has been shot down in the Karachay district of Russia's Belgorod Oblast. We're going to talk about a daring mission into the tunnels near Avdiivka. Of course, we're going to have a look at the maps, and we're going to look over a statement from Soldier X about the situation that's going on as well in Ukraine as he sees it. So first off the bat, let's talk about this Russian transport aircraft, an Il-76. So here is the transport aircraft here. Now, people will compare this to a C-17, C-130, probably more comparable to a C-17 as it is a jet-powered engine, not a turboprop like a C-130. And this can carry us somewhere in the vicinity, I think, of double that a C-130 can. Now, on the 24th of January, a few days ago, this Il-76, or one of these aircraft, crashed in a fireball in rural Russia, killing all aboard. Now, that is really where then this argument happens. Now, this has been geolocated to this Yablonovo village here in Russia. Now, of course, this is Ukraine down here. So let's go from some area and see what sort of distance this is actually going to be talking about. I couldn't find it then. So minimum 60 kilometers, more so from Kharkiv, 120. So we're looking between that 60 and 120 kilometers from the border. So still within range of air defense. And this is where all of these arguments then happen. So the news got released that Ukraine had shot down a Russian transport plane. And then people are saying, well, that transport plane was actually carrying Ukrainian prisoners of war in a prisoner exchange that was meant to be happening later that day. And many bloggers have pointed out that many headlines and articles were edited and changed once these claims started, that it was hit with the POWs aboard. And initially, this is what came out from the main directorate of intelligence of the MOD of Ukraine. An exchange of prisoners was supposed to take place today, but did not take place. According to the Russian side, it's happened as a result of downing the Il-76 plane, which allegedly was transporting our prisoners. Ukraine does not have reliable or comprehensive information about who exactly was aboard the plane in what number. So saying that we don't really know, but that exchange then was called off. And many people are going as this is the first trickle of evidence that has come in. So, of course, as you're aware, this sent the internet into just a meltdown, with no real evidence either way being brought forward, with the usual finger pointing both ways. Now, Ukraine was claiming the plane was transporting S-300 missiles for air defense systems, but can also be used in a ground-to-ground system as well, as we've seen Russia do. And Russia is claiming that it warned Ukraine about the prisoner of war transport and that there were a number of Ukrainian prisoners then aboard that aircraft. Ukraine and Russia then both quickly made statements appealing to the international audience and the UN for a third-party independent investigation. Now, the Ukrainian body in charge of POWs warned that Russia was actively carrying out special information operations against Ukraine, which are aimed at destabilizing Ukrainian society. Zelensky said very similar, stating, "It is obvious that the Russians are playing with the lives of Ukrainian prisoners, with the feelings of their relatives, and with the emotions of our society." So saying that Russia is playing into this informational game to destabilize things. So Ukraine do seem to be leaning into this misinformation psyop sort of element, as we see then in this article from Kiev Independent today. Military intelligence on the Il-76 crash. Russia could use Ukrainian POWs as human shields. saying Russia could have used Ukrainian prisoners of war's human shields to transport ammunition and weapons for missile systems. This comes from Andrei Yusov on the 25th. Now, many people are interested in what then the UN, the United Nations, has to say about this. Now, UN Secretary General at a meeting of the UN Security Council has reported, according to Russian authorities, the plane was carrying 65 Ukrainian POWs, 6 Russian crew members and 3 Russian military personnel. According to Ukrainian authorities, the plane may have been carrying missiles for Russia's military. The UN is not in a position to verify these reports or the circumstances of the crash. What is clear is that the incident took place in the context of Russia's invasion of Ukraine and ongoing war. They called that Ukraine had also asked then for an international investigation. The scale and intensity of attacks against Ukraine have only grown, highlighting the dangerous trajectory of the war. And then talking about the strikes on civilian areas. But saying then the UN, they couldn't come to a conclusion on this either. At this point in time, we don't know exactly what has happened. Whether Russia has capitalized on this accident after losing another important plane, after losing their AWACS 2 weeks ago, that they're capitalizing on this to push into this informational space and destabilize, or Ukrainian air defense did hit this plane carrying the prisoners of war. Where this story could go is really 0 to 100. Now, we've looked at what Ukraine said. Let's have a look at what Russia said. So Putin has said, I don't know if they did it on purpose or by mistake, but it is obvious that they did it. In any case, what happened is a crime, either through negligence or on purpose, but in any case, it is a crime. Senior Russian politician Andrei Kartapolov has said the Ukrainian side was officially warned, and 15 minutes before the plane entered the zone, they were given complete information, which they received, and the main intelligence directorate of the Ukrainian Armed Forces confirmed receipt of. The chairman of the State Duma of the Federal Assembly of the Russian Federation has said, this is the Nazi regime raised by Biden, Macron, Scholz, and other politicians. They must realize their responsibility. They shoot their own soldiers in the sky, their soldiers. Their mothers were waiting, their wives were waiting, their children were waiting for them. There was a decision, the pilots of our military transport aircraft who were carrying a humanitarian mission, defenseless people, were shot down. There is, of course, footage of the plane going down. That's how we have the geolocation. And there is footage showing the aftermath of the crash site. But I cannot show you that on YouTube, but I'll put it on the Telegram if you would like to show it. But in my opinion, we're not air crash investigations. We can't say exactly what actually we're looking at in that. And I don't believe any of the footage is really that beyond reasonable doubt. But let's have a look at this video. Now, this has come out over the past, say, 6 to 8 hours, and people are using this as evidence of the prisoners then putting onto this IL-76 aircraft. So this is IL-76 and these vehicles here. Now, these vehicles from a distance sort of look like a Unimog, and this would be a Kamaz, basically a rip-off of a Unimog, these Kamaz trucks here. So these are what they use for prisoner transport, and you can see similar truck here. Now, what they're saying is in this footage is you can see these prisoners getting offloaded and put onto this plane here. Now, again, I just don't think any of this footage is beyond reasonable doubt. I don't think that this footage does show that amount of people. You can definitely see people, you can definitely see transport here, but that amount doesn't exactly show it. So at this point in time, I don't think that we have any 100% rock solid evidence as to either side of what has happened here. Ukraine has not said that there were no POWs on the plane, and they've not said that there definitely was. So we're floating in this mix, and there's a lot of Russian accounts saying that the Russian ministry is going to release more rock solid footage over the coming few days, and Ukraine is saying the same about definitive evidence of exactly what happened. So I guess it will be one of those things where we watch and wait and see what actually happened here. But this war has two fronts. The first front is the lads in the trenches, and the second being the informational space, whether it's Telegram or Twitter or CNN or Fox. And that space is unbelievably important to what then happens for the lads on the front line. And I don't think that we'll ever have 100% confirmation on exactly this incident and many other incidents like it. But the extraordinary loss of life that we see in these incidents will continue to be used as propaganda. But let me know what you think. And I know that I've probably missed a fair bit in that. It was a simplified breakdown of what happened. Now, a channel favorite is Soldier X. He's come on for a few interviews and people do really like what he says. Still, a lot of people disagree with a lot, but can confirm he is in Ukraine and helping Ukraine, but feeds me anonymous intelligence information, exactly how he sees is going on from someone with a soldiering background and isn't scared to call out bullshit when he sees it. He calls a spade a spade. So he sent me across this sit rep. Now, this is a few days old, but we will be getting a new one from him in person. Once he leaves Ukraine, we'll have a full uncut interview. Yesterday, the mobilisation bill, which would have helped both destroy Ukraine's economy and alienated the public, has been killed. Recruitment into the military remains low, however, due to ever-growing corruption and incompetence. By contrast, the ranks of the Russian forces are growing every day and are allowing for additional offensive action, while foreign volunteers leave or are outright banned from joining the Ukrainian armed forces. Russian forces continue to build up forces for a future offensive, particularly in the north near Kupiansk and Kharkiv axis. The ISW has stated that offensive on this axis poses a low risk. And we've seen the ISW talk about these offensives on these axes and maybe an airborne offensive as well. We believe, to the contrary, that Ukraine's northern flanks are in extreme danger, so separate from the ISW. As Ukrainian supply lines remain overextended and as Russian operational reserves grow, we assess this sector to be a moderate to severe risk. Additionally, Russian forces in Belarus are now finally starting to materialize into a serious threat. We assess the possibility of a raid into Ukrainian territory as moderate. However, operational action is still low. On the front, Russian forces broke through Kuzmivka. So far, an operational breakthrough doesn't appear to have materialized due to poor tactical and operational level doctrine. However, the situation remains dire. Ukraine has lost the village of Vesely, and other sectors are low on shells and trained personnel. So we talked about Vesely last time we spoke, just on a week ago. These losses are indicative of Ukraine's lack of manpower, effective equipment, low morale, and very poorly constructed defensive works, many of which have not improved since last year. Soldier X talked on our last interview about all of these things and the defensive works that he was saying we have time now to build up these defensive works. He is there trying to rally people and support from other nations to get on and build those defensive works. You can listen to that interview if you'd like. Avdiivka is completely isolated via direct and indirect fires. Due to poor Ukraine tactical and operational planning, troops have once again been left, like in Debaltseve and Bakhmut, to be encircled as Russian forces continue to pour in forces at a great cost, so high casualties, in hopes of achieving a full encirclement. Ukraine's lack of anti-air and shell hunger, poor tactical and operational behavior has resulted in an attempt to counter pincer Russian forces, becoming an utter failure. The Krinky Virtue Signal salient, this is down on the Dnieper River, continues to represent a complete operational failure, as some of Ukraine's best soldiers are left to be slaughtered. All so a certain general can save face, calling this a virtue signal, basically showing we have this area across here. Remaining Ukrainian operational reserves that have not been destroyed have been committed piecemeally to help stem the tide of the ongoing Russian onslaught. We assess the probability of future Ukrainian coordinated offensive action as low. By contrast, Russian offensive action will continue to grow. So he'll come on and explain fully what he means in all of that at a later date. Now, I want to talk about this missile that has been seen over Kiev. And we've seen this before, of these Russian missiles firing flares to counter that air defense. And this is a new thing that we have seen over the past few weeks. And it does seem to have worked here with then a strike here. So working just like an aircraft with flares and chaff aboard. And it is very interesting to see how that will then navigate air defense into the future. Now, I told you that we were going to then talk about a daring mission from the Russian side. And credit where credit's due, this is a very daring mission and has worked out. and both sides have acknowledged what has actually happened here. So we're going to look at some photos and some footage exactly. But firstly, footage of an operation of Russian special forces to reach the rear of the garrison of the Ukrainian fortified area here in Avdiivka. So let's have a look right here. So of course we have Ukraine in the center and the capital of Kiev, Russia around here. It's Crimea and Donetsk here. So let's zoom in then on Avdiivka. Now, of course, today is the 27th. Happy Australia Day for yesterday. Now we roll back a couple of days and then we see this right in here, that large movement straight up and pushing in there, and that area has now held for 3 to 4 days. The fighters cut a passage in an old flooded underground pipe and through it entered the rear of the Ukrainian fortification in the south of Avdiivka, thereby successfully capturing it. The unique operation took several weeks to prepare while the scouts cleaned the pipe while in icy water, but it was worth it. As a result, a group of only 150 fighters covered more than 2 kilometres and unexpectedly went behind the enemy, destroying and capturing many of them in a matter of hours. Despite the fierce counterattacks of the enemy, the fighters, together with the reinforcements that arrived, were able to hold the acquired positions, and now further assault on Avdiivka will develop from there. So they've pushed right up into Avdiivka here, and this is the map that then was released. Now, the deep state map is showing that this is significantly further up. It's showing right here, but have pushed a fair way out and up to here. So that map I just showed you was from the Russian sources that then reported on this. So let's have a few photographs and a look at some of the footage of these special forces guys who have come into these pipes here. Now this, of course, has then the face blurred out here as well. Going through these frozen bloody pipes would be freezing even with waders on. I'd hate to get killed in waders because it's impossible to look cool in waders. Anyway, here we go, cutting then through these pipes here. And as this warfare becomes more and more stagnant like this, we're going to see more and more action like this just to try and break that stronghold. We saw this in the World Wars. Look at something like Beneath Hill 60, tunneling under bloody trench lines just to blow it up from the bottom. As it stagnates, there's going to be more and more like this, and drones have really helped stagnate this war, as the front lines basically are not moving in most areas. But we're going to look at where is and isn't moving on the front line. So more footage of those SF guys then cutting through the pipes there. And you have more video of these guys then talking about exactly what they're doing. And it seems like that was a successful mission and operation that has then occurred. So let's have a look on the maps. Now, at what Soldier X called the Virtuo Signal Salient, we haven't seen any changes here at this small bridgehead that Ukraine is holding across at Krinky. We haven't seen any change down in Lobkovy here. We've seen minimal change then around to the south of Orokhiv. Let's just scroll forward a bit here, as we do see that Ukraine did make back some new ground here by the blue. Only on the past 48 hours has made back some ground just there. Haven't seen any change in Uruzani for a long time now. Novomakalivka, we haven't really seen any change on the deep state map, but we are going to talk about maybe a newer update that says that there has been a significant change here. As we can see that Russia is still making more ground out to the northwest of Mariinka here, as Russia did take all of Mariinka a couple of weeks back. And there has been just an expansion of control there, but doesn't show any change around Solodoki, Novomalivka here. But Suryak maps tells then a different story here. So, situation southwest of Donetsk, Ukrainian army launched counterattacks and recaptured many positions south of Novomalivka that were recently lost. On the other hand, from the northern axis, Ukrainian troops advanced towards Zveronets stronghold, which is again contested, while the Russian army made some advancements south of that. So that's saying that Ukraine made some ground up in here and has made ground right in here. But this has only ever shown this as grey zone. So it never showed that Russia actually gained any positions here. It only put it into grey zone. So it's saying that Ukraine has made this back. Deep state doesn't reflect these movements, but it may not have shown the Russian gain if that happened in here. As we do know, the deep state map is very, very conservative to any Russian gain. But they're saying that Ukraine's made back a fair bit of ground in there. Now, where we are going to move is then up into Avdiivka, and we did show you this bit that it was made by that tunnel operation, but we need to go back to the 20th to show you exactly what is happening out around here. So we can see the grey zone changing here, and we can see that Russia lost a little bit of ground along this train line here, but other than that, no major huge bit. Now, what Soldier X was talking about, the pincer, of course, look at a pincer that Russia have got units trying to pincer around Avdiivka and pincer in smaller areas as well. Now, let's have a look to the south of Avdiivka and see what Suryak then is saying, and he shows this same amount of movement out along here as well. We like when the maps line up. Russian army made some advances along the railway towards TO505 road. The situation in this axis didn't change significantly in the last 48 hours as Ukrainian army reinforcements managed to stabilize the front and launched a series of counterattacks that were also repelled by Russian forces. So this is showing that the front line for Russia is a lot further up, so more along this road here, and we can see where this intersection is. So it's saying that it is around here, and that the fighting is somewhat in more along here, so we can see where this bend is. So it's saying that it's sort of along here and out along here. So let me show you here. So it's saying it's more like that and like that. But end of the day, we like when the maps both line up, because I think all maps have some sort of leeway in where then they sit. So we'll pick up and then we'll come up into Bakhmut. Let's have a look and see if we see any differences over the past few days. Don't really see any change here, just a color shift, but don't worry about that. But let's have a look at what Suryak says in this map down in the south around Klishkivka and Rivka here. So see where this pops out. It's saying that there's some ground made around these areas, not being shown in the other maps. But situation south of Bakhmut, Russian army took control over new positions in the high area between Klishkivka and Ivanovsky. So in this high ground we're talking here. It has been mentioned in the last hours of an advance of Russian troops in the center of Bodanivka. The truth is the fighting continues in that area with hardly any changes for days. This is talking up in the northwest here. The forested area northwest of the town that was claimed under Russian control was never captured and was never shown as such on the map. The Russians have not taken the heights further south and north of Bodanivka, which would allow not only for the capture of the locality, but also the southern Ivanovsky, which would allow moving the battle to the canal area. The front has been stabilized by the arrival of Ukrainian reinforcements in recent days, similar to what has happened in Avdiivka. So Ukraine has put more reinforcements in and stabilize the front line here. But what Russia is trying to do is trying to close up between Klishkivka, Ivanovsky, and Bodanivka in here. As we know, there are many rolling hills in this area and a buffer zone out to Bakhmut where they are fortifying more positions. Now, where we then need to move up into is we're going to move up in Bilorivka in here and see if there's been any change in the past week in here, not being shown then on this map, but let's then have a look on the Suryak map. During the last hours, Russian army took control over the filtering station northwest of Bilorivka and some of the trenches located in the southern hill. So just in here. So up until here, we haven't really seen that much change on the map for that past week. But where it does get interesting is if we push up north. So this is, of course, Kupiansk. We talk about this Vilshana. But if we look just to the east in here, Russia does make a fair chunk of ground. So let's look back on then the 18th. And we're going to see that Russia has extended then its grey zone area here. Then we get to the 20th. So there was a fair jump across here. So let's try and measure this from here to the road. So let's go 2.8. Let's go around 2.5 to 3 kilometers, which is a hell of a lot in what we're talking about this war. We're talking meters a lot in this war. We're talking very, very few ground. When we see a jump of 2-3 kilometers, a hell of a lot, and expanded the control around this area, taking over this Krokholmy in here and then holding this for then a number of days. So that is a significant jump up to there. And we will then get the month recaps for January in about a week from Warmapper, as well as Suryak. It'll be interesting to see what the net shift of ground on the front line actually is. Legends. That is, I believe, let me check. that's everything for today. I hope you're having a great day. Sorry for missing a week, but I did actually really need it. And I'm still a little bit sunburnt. But if you'd like to support me, there's links down below. But thank you very much. And thank you for putting up with me taking some time off. So I'll see you soon. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. Bye-bye.